Hi guys, this is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please. Looks like I got stuff on the side of my eyes. I did and I don't. Hi. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a connected dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, artwork to create, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom. Anything helps at this moment in time. Allylatkrcations211.com is where you can purchase and see all of my artwork. So I do paint and sip paintings. I got signs. I got craft and sips. I got pyramids and gem skulls and business card holders and candles. Oh my! Check out my work if you're looking for something customized or something unique. Please hit this girl up. I'm also going, I was supposed to do it today, but Canada, take your wildfire fires back. No offense to the Canadians that watch, and I know many of you know it's not your fault. But the air quality was junky today, and the places where there is printing just to get things priced out, they're not close. They're a little on the far side. So I don't like to drive with my AC on if it's nice and breezy and you can't breathe outside. So hopefully tomorrow is a better day and I could do it tomorrow. I'm trying to get prints made of the flamingo drawing I did and two paint and sip paintings and see how much it costs and what I'm able to do financially, which is not that much. But I know a lot of people want the flamingo at least. So I'm going to make prints and then it'll be affordable for everybody and for me to ship. In the meantime, 3D memberships is another great way to support me and this channel. And my thank you back to you is you guys get free Oracle readings. So the members, the collective of members, I do Oracle card readings for them on a private channel member only access video that's done once a week. And I also give you guys one free entry into all my raffles I hold once a month. I'm still waiting on two people to get back to me with what they want. I know schedules and things have been hectic. Things in the plumbing arena have calmed down. For now, I'm just taking every day as a blessing that I don't have a Noah's Ark flood deluge down here. Um, just blessed because I just don't have income or loan availability to get that taken care of. That makes sense. Um, I'm trying to be optimistic and not stressed about things I can't control. Tobacco, everybody. Calms me down. Keeps me from getting certain things too. So today I'm going to read the Secret Doctrine Stanza. I think this is 12. This is part 2. Our divine instructors. Just to put a little disclaimer out there, I am dyslexic. There are going to be words there that might not be there. My eyes see things that are not necessarily accurate, so I do apologize. My teeth fall out of my face. I would, with all the things that go wrong when you do save up for something that you want to get done, the catastrophe and apocalypse happens. So I need either dentures or they need to give me the opportunity to regrow my teeth and do that for free. That'd be amazing. But for the meantime, I have projection, like, so certain words is not being able to come out of my mouth projection wise, pronunciation wise. It's not because I'm stupid, it's just because the way my mouth and everything has shifted. It's stinky. So mind you, please hold some compassion and grace. Um, I'm not perfect. I'm no audiobook, and I just do this to be kind. And I love what I do. Anywho, divine instructors. Now Atlantis and the Phagalian Isle, Isle, are not the only record that is left of the deluge. Talking about deluges. China has also her tradition and the story of an island or continent which is called Maligaisma. They break it down too. I don't. And which Kempfer and Faber spell Morigosmia for some mysterious phonetic reasons of their own. Kempfer, in his Japan, gives the tradition the island, owing to its integrity of its giants, sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and Pirinoon, the king, the Chinese Noah, escapes alone with his family owing to a warning of the gods through two idols. It is that pious prince and his descendants who have peopled China. The Chinese traditions speak of the divine dynasties of kings as much as those of any other nations. At the same time, there is not an old fragment, but shows belief in a multi-form and even multi-generic evolution, spiritual, psychic, intellectual, and physical of human beings, just as given in the present work. A few of these claims have now been considered. Our races, they all show, have sprung from divine races, but whatever name they are called, whether we deal with the Indian rishis or Pitras, with the Chinese Shimnang and Shang. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. I actually can pronounce Chinese better than Greek. Can't even do the Greek. Their divine man and demigods, with the Arcadian Dingir and Molil, the creative god and the gods of the ghost world, with the Egyptians Isis, Osiris, and Thoth, with the Hebrew Elohim, or again with Manuk Capac and his Peruvian progeny. The story varies nowhere. Every nation has either their 7 or 10 rishis, manas, and prayapatris. The 7 and 10 chi, I want to say it's Ki. I don't know if Ki in references to Q. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Or 10 and 7 Shapens. 6 exoterically, 10 and 7 Chaldean andotes. 10 and 7 Sitharoth. One and all have been derived from the primitive Dayan Kohans of the esoteric doctrine, or the builders of the stanzas, Book 1. From Manu, Thoth Hermes, Oannes Dagon, and Idris Enoch, down to Plato and Pandores, all tell us of 7 divine dynasties in 7 Lemurian and 7 Atlantean divisions of the earth. Of the 7 Lemurian and 7 Atlantean divisions, dual gods who descend from their celestial abode and reign on earth, teaching mankind astronomy, architecture, and all the other sciences that have come down to us. These beings appear first as gods and creators, then they merge in nascent men to finally emerge as divine kings and rulers. But this fact has been gradually forgotten as Boscu Bosque, a person shows the Egyptians themselves confess that science flourishes in their country only since Isis Osiris, whom they continue to adore as gods, though they had become princes in human form. And he adds of Osiris Isis, a divine androgyny. It is said that the prince Isis Osiris built cities in Egypt, stopped the overflowing of the Nile, invented agriculture, and the use of divine music, astronomy, and geometry. When Abdul Frida says in his Historia Anti-Islamica, however you pronounce that book, that the Sabian language was established by Seth and Indris, Enoch, he means by Sabine language astronomy. In the Mil Elwa Nohil, Hermes is called the discipline of Agathodemon. And in another account, the pyramids of Giza, Agathodon. You guys know what the name is, and if you don't look it up, is mentioned as a king of Egypt. Clepis Geraldinus. If I live during this time, I really hope that this whatever vehicle I was inhabiting at that time actually could say half of this nonsensical words. I don't know why things are so complicated. And yes, English is complicated, but it's so inversed. Anyway, gives curious traditions about Henoch. He calls him the divine giant. In the book of the various names of the Nile, the same author, the historian Ahmed ben Yosef Letfis, tells us of the belief among the Semitic Arabs that Seth became later the Egyptian Typhon, Set, had been one of the seven angels or patriarchs in the Bible. Then he became a mortal and Adam's son, after which he communicated the gift of prophecy and astronomical science to Jared, who passed it to his son Henoch. But Henoch, Indris, the author of 30 books, was Sabian by origin. Having established the rites and ceremonies of primitive worship, he went to the east, where he constructed 140 cities, of which Indris was the least important, then returned to Egypt, where he became its king. Thus, he is identified with Hermes. But there were 5 Hermes, or rather one, who appeared as some Manas and Rishis did in several different characters. In the Buram Kai, something like that, he is mentioned as Hormig, a name of the planet Mercury of Buddha, and Wednesday was sacred both to Hermes and Thoth. The Hermes of Oriental tradition worshipped at Finata and said to have fled after the death of Argus into Egypt, civilized it under the name of Thoth. But under whichever of these characters, he is always credited with having transferred all the sciences from latent to active potency, with having been the first to teach magic to Egypt and to Greece before the days of Magna Graecia, and when the Greeks were not even Hellenistic. Not only Herodotus, the father of history, tells us of the marvelous dynasties of gods that precede the reign of mortals, followed by the dynasties of demigods, heroes, and finally men, but the whole series of classics support him. Diodorus, I'm going to attempt this one, Eratosthenes, Plato, Mentheo, and repeat the same and never vary the order given. It is indeed, as Creuser says, from the spheres of the stars wherein dwell the gods of light, that wisdom descends to the inferior spheres. In the systems of the ancient priests, Hierophanes and adepts, all things without exception, gods and the genii, manes, souls, the whole world are conjointly developed in space and duration. The pyramid may be considered as a symbol of the magnificent hierarchy of spirits. There were more efforts made by the modern historians, French academics like Renan chiefly, to suppress truth by ignoring the ancient annals of divine kings, than is strictly consistent with the honesty. But M. Renan could never be more unwilling than was Eratosthenes 260 years BC to accept the unpalpable fact, and yet the latter found himself obliged to recognize its truth. For this, the great astronomer is treated with the great contempt by his colleagues 2,000 years later. Manetho became with them a superstitious priest, born and bred in the atmosphere of other lying priests and Heliopolis. All those historians and priests, just remarks the demonologist de Marville, so vicarious when repeating stories of human kings and men, suddenly become extremely superstitious. No sooner do they go back to their gods. But there is the synchronistic table of Abydos, which, thanks to the genius of Champollion, has now vindicated the good faith of the priests of Egypt, Menthalos above all, and that of Ptolemy. In the Turin Papyrus, the most remarkable of all, the words of the Egyptologist de Roche, Champollion, struck with amazement, found that he had under his own eyes the whole truth. It was the remains of a list of dynasties embracing the furthest mythologic times, or the reign of the gods and heroes. At the very onset of the curious papyrus, we have to arrive at the conviction that so far back already as the period of Ramses, these mystic and heroical traditions were just as Manetho had transmitted them to us. We see figuring in them as kings of Egypt the gods Seb, Osiris, Horus, Thoth, Hermes, and the goddess Ma, a long period of centuries being assigned to the reign of each of these. The synchronistic tables of Manetho, besides the fact that they were disfigured by Eusebius, I'm doing my best here, for dishonest purposes, and had never gone beyond Manetho. The chronology of the divine kings and dynasties, like that of the age of humanity, has ever been in the hands of priests and was kept secret from the profane multitudes. Africa as a continent, it is said, appeared before Europe did. Nevertheless, it appeared later than Lemuria and even the earliest Atlantis. That the whole region of what is now Egypt and the deserts were once upon a time covered with the sea was known firstly through Herodotus, Strabo, Pliny, and all the Greeks, and secondly through geology. Abyssinia was once upon a time an island, and the Delta was the first country occupied by the pioneer immigrants who came with their gods from the northeast. When was it? History is silent upon the subject. Fortunately, we have the Dendera zodiac, the planisphere on the ceiling of one of the oldest Egyptian temples, which records the fact. The zodiac, with this mysterious three Virgos between the Lion and Libra, has found its Oedipus, who understood the riddle of these signs and justified the truthfulness of those priests who told Herodotus that the poles of the earth and the ecliptic had formerly coincided. and that even since their first zodiacal records were commenced, the poles have been 3 times within the plane of the ecliptic, as the initiates taught. Bailey had not sufficient words at his command to express his surprise at the sameness of all such traditions about the divine races. What are finally, he exclaims, all those reigns of India, Devas, and Persian Puris, or those reigns and dynasties of the Chinese legends, those Tian Hong, or the kings of heaven, quite distinct from the Ti Hong, the kings of the earth, and the Jin Hong, the king's men, a distinction which is in perfect accord with that other one made by the Greeks and Egyptians in enumerating their dynasties of gods and demigods and mortals. Now, says Pandorus, it is before that time, Menes, that the reign of the 7 gods who rule the world took place. It was during that period that those benefactors of humanity descending on earth and taught men to calculate the course of the sun and moon by 12 signs of the ecliptic. Nearly 500 years before the actual era, Herodotus was shown by the priests of Egypt the statues of their human kings and pontiffs, primus, the archie-prophets of Maha-Kohans of the temples, born one from the other without the intervention of woman, who had reigned before Menes, their first human king. These statues, he says, were enormous colossi in wood, 345 in number, each of which has his name and his history and his annals. And they assured Herodotus, unless the most truthful of historians, the father of history, is now accused of fibbing just in this instance, that no historian could ever understand or write an account of these superhuman kings unless he had studied and learned the history of the 3 dynasties that preceded the human, namely the dynasties of the gods, that of the demigods, and the heroes or giants. These 3 dynasties are the 3 races. Translated into the language of the esoteric doctrine, these 3 dynasties would also be those of the Devas, of Kimpurashas, and of Dembas and Daitas, otherwise gods, celestial spirits, and giants or titans. Happy are those who are born even from the condition of gods and men in Bharata Varasha, exclaimed the internal gods themselves during the 3rd root race. Bharata is India, but in this case it symbolized the chosen land in those days and was considered the best of the divisions of Jambu Dwapa, as it was the land of active spiritual works par excellence, the land of initiation and of divine knowledge. Can one fail to recognize in cruisers great powers of intuition when, being almost unacquainted with the Aryan Hindu philosophies, little known in his day, he wrote, "We modern Europeans feel surprised when hearing talk of the spirits of the moon, the sun. But we repeat again, the natural good sense and the upright judgment of these ancient peoples, quite foreign to our entirely material ideas upon celestial mechanics and physical sciences, cannot see in the stars and planets only that which we see, namely simple mass of light or opaque bodies moving in circuits inside real space, merely according to the laws of attraction or repulsion, but they saw in them living bodies animated by spirits as they saw the same in every kingdom of nature. This doctrine of spirits, so consistent and comfortable in nature, from which it was derived from a grand and unique conception wherein the physical and moral, the political aspects were all blended together. It is such a conception only that can lead man to form a correct conclusion about his origin and the genesis of everything in the universe, of heaven and earth, between which he is a living link. Without such a psychological link and the feeling of its presence, no science can ever progress, and the realm of knowledge must be limited to the analysis of physical matter only. Occultists believe in spirits because they feel and some see themselves surrounded on every side by them. Materialists do not. They live on this earth, just as in the world of insects and even of fishes. Some creatures live surrounded by myriads of their own genius without seeing or so much as sensing them. Plato is the first sage among the classics who speaks at length of the divine dynasties and locates them on a vast continent which he calls Atlantis. Bailey was not the first nor last to believe the same, and he had been preceded and anticipated in theory by Father Krischer. This learned Jesuit writes in, that's not coming out of me. I confess for a long time I had regarded all these dynasties and the Atlantis as pure fables. To the day when, better instructed in Oriental languages, I judged that all these legends must be, after all, only the development of a great truth. As de Rogemont shows, Theopompus, in his Meropis, made the priests of Phrygia and Asia Minor speak exactly as the priests of Sais did when they revealed to Solon the history and fate of Atlantis. According to Theopompus, it was a unique continent of an indefinite size and containing two countries inhabited by two races, a fighting warrior race and a pious meditative race, which Theopompus symbolized by two cities. The pious city was continually visited by the gods. The belligerent city was inhabited by various beings invulnerable to iron, liable to be mortally wounded only by stone and wood. De Gros treats this as a pure fiction of Theopompus, and even sees a fraud in the assertion of the Saitic priests. This was denounced by the demonologists as illogical. In the words of de Marvell, a supercherie, which was based on a belief, the product of faith of the whole antiquity, a supposition which yet gave its name to a whole mountain chain, the Atlas, which specified with the greatest precision a topographical region by placing some of its land at a small distance from Cadiz and the Strait of Calyptius, which prophesied 2,000 years before Columbus the great transoceanic land situated beyond the Atlantis and which is reached, it said, by the islands not of the blessed, but of the good spirits. Such a supposition can never be a universal chimera. It is certain that whether chimera or reality, the priests of the whole world had it from one and the same source. The universal tradition about the third great continent, which perished some 850,000 years ago, a continent inhabited by two distinct races, distinct physically and especially morally, both deeply versed in primeval wisdom and the secrets of nature, mutually antagonistic in their struggle during the course and progress of their double evolution. Whence even the Chinese teachings upon the subject, if it is but a fiction? Have they not recorded the existence once upon a time of a holy island beyond the sun, and beyond which was situated the lands of the immortal man? Do they not still believe that the remnants of these immortal men who survived when the holy island had become black with sin and perished have found refuge in the great desert of Gobi, where they still reside, invisible to all and defended from approach by hosts of spirits? If one has to lend ear to traditions, writes the very unbelieving Boulanger, the later place before the reign of kings, that of the heroes and demigods, and still earlier and beyond, they place the marvelous reign of the gods and all the fables of the Golden Age. One feels surprised that annals so interesting should have been rejected by some of our historians, and yet the ideas communicated by them were once universally admitted and revered by all the peoples. Not a few revered them still, making them the base of their daily life. Such considerations seem to necessitate a less hurried judgment. The ancients from whom we hold these traditions, which we accept no longer because we do not understand them now, must have had motives for believing in them furnished by their greater proximity to the first ages, in which the distance that separates us from them refuses to us. Plato, in his fourth book of Laws, says that long before the construction, I can't with these flies, of the first cities, Saturn had established on Earth a certain form of government under which man was very happy, as it is the golden age he refers to, or to that reign of gods celebrated in ancient fables. Let us see that the ideas he had of that happy age, and what was the occasion he had to introduce the fable into a treaty of politics. According to Plato, in order to obtain clear and precise ideas on royalty, its origin and power, one has to turn back to the first principles of history and tradition. Great changes, he says, have occurred in days of old, in heaven and on earth. And the present state of things is one of the results, karma. Our traditions tell us of many marvels of changes that have taken place in the course of the sun, of Saturn's reign, and of 1,000 other matters that remain scattered about in human history. But one never hears anything of the evil which has produced those revelations, nor of the evil which directly followed them. Yet that evil is the principle one has to talk about, to be able to treat of royalty and the origin of power. That evil Plato seems to see in the sameness or consubstantially, maybe, holy crap, my brain, off, of the natures of the rulers and the ruled. For he says that long before man built his cities in the golden age, there was not but happiness on the earth, for there were no needs. Why? Because Saturn, knowing that man could not rule man without injustice, filling forthwith the universe through his whims and vanity, would not allow any mortal to obtain power over his fellow creatures. To do this, God used the same means we use ourselves with regard to our flocks. We do not place a bullock or a ram over our bullocks and rams, but give them a leader, a shepherd, a being of a species quite different from their own and of a superior nature. It is just what Saturn did. He loved mankind and placed to rule over it no mortal king or prince, but spirits and genii of a divine nature more excellent than that of man. It was God, the Logos, the synthesis of the host, who was presiding over the genii, became the first shepherd and leader of man. When the world had ceased to be so governed and the gods retired, ferocious beasts devoured a portion of mankind. Left to their own resources and industry, inventors then appeared among them, successfully, and discovered fire, wheat, wine, and public gratitude defiled them. And mankind was right, as fire by fiction was the first mystery of nature. The first and chief property of matter was revealed to man. Fruits and grain unknown to earth to that day were brought by the lords of wisdom, but the benefit of those they ruled from other locus spheres. Say the commentaries. Now, the earliest inventions of mankind are the most wonderful that the race has ever made. The first use of fire and the discovery of the methods by which it can be kindled, the domestication of animals, and above all, the process by which the various cereals were first developed out of some wild grasses. These are all discoveries with which, in ingenuity and importance No subsequent discoveries can compare. They are all unknown to history, all lost in the light of an effulgent dawn. This was to be doubted and denied in our proud generation, but it is asserted that there are no grains and fruits unknown to earth. Then we may assert that there are, sorry, I'm lost in my words. Then we may remind the reader, someone have it on pen, that wheat has never been found in the wild state. It is not a product of the earth. All other cereals have been traced to their primogenital forms in various species of wild grasses, but wheat has hitherto defied the efforts of botanists to trace its own origins. And at least us bear in mind in the connection how sacred was the cereal with the Egyptian priests, wheat being placed even with their mummies and found thousands of years later in their coffins. Remember, the servants of Horus gleaned the wheat in the field of Anaru, where wheat 7 cubits high, Book of the Dead. The reader is referred to stanza 7, verse 3, book 1, wherein the verse is explained in another of its meanings and also to the Book of the Dead. I am the queen of these regions, says the Egyptian Isis. I was the first to reveal to mortals the mysteries of wheat and corn. I am she who rises to the constellation of the dog star. Rejoice, O Egypt, thou who wert my nurse. Sirius was called the dog star. It was the star of Mercury or Buddha, called the great instructor of mankind before other Buddhas. The book of the Chinese Y King attributes the discovery of agriculture to the instruction given to men by celestial genii. Woe to the men who know not, observe not, nor will they see. They are all blind, since they remain ignorant how much the world is full of various and invisible creatures which crowd even in the most sacred places. Zohar. The sons of God have existed and do exist. From the Hindu Brahmaputras and the Mansapurutas, I'm butchering that, by the way, sons of Brahma and mind-born sons, down to the Bnei Alam of the Jewish Bible, the faith of the centuries and universe tradition forces reason to yield to such evidence. Of what value is independent criticism, so-called, or internal evidence, based usually on the respective hobbies of the critics, in the face of the universal testimony which never varied throughout the historical cycles? Read esoterically the 6th chapter of Genesis, which repeats the statements of the secret doctrine, only changing slightly its form, and drawing a different conclusion, which classes even with the Zohar. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God, Bnei Alem, came in unto the daughters of man, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were of old men of renown, or giants. Postulates. What does the sentence and also after that signify, unless it means, when explained, there were giants in the earth before the sinless sons of the third race, and also after that, when other sons of God, lower in nature, inaugurated sexual connection on the earth, as Daksha did when he saw that his Manasuputras would not people the earth. And then comes a long break in the chapter of Genesis between verses 4 and 5. Surely it was not in or through the wickedness of the mighty men of renown, among whom is placed Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, that God saw that the wickedness of man was great, nor in the builders of Babel, for the for this was after the deluge, but in the progeny of the giants who produce monstra quidam de genre gianto monsters, from whence sprang the lower races of men now represented on earth by a few miserable dying out tribes and huge anthropod apes. And if we are taken to task by theologians, whether Protestant or Roman Catholic, we have only to refer them to their own literal texts. The above quoted verse was ever a dilemma, not alone for the men of science and biblical scholars, but also for priests. For as Reverend Father Perron puts it, either they, the Benalim, were good angels, and in some case, how could they fall? Or they were bad angels, and in the case could not be called B'nai Elam, the sons of God. The biblical riddle, the real sense of which no author has ever understood, as candidly confessed by Fairmount, can only be explained by the occult doctrine through the Zohar to the Western and the Book of Dzyan to the Eastern. What the former says we have seen, what the Zohar tells us is the B'nai Elam was a name common to the Melchim, the good messengers, and to the Ishim, the lower angels, Rabbi Parsha. We may add, for the benefit of demonologists, that their Satan, the adversary, is included in Job among the sons of God, or Ben Alam, who visited their father. But of this later on. I love that. We all know my sentiment now. If you don't, say it's God. God said, God said, let there be, and then that comes everything. So how can it not be of? It's not separate. We perceive it as separate because we live in a third dimensional separation and limitation paradigm, but in essence, it's one, all of it. Stop separating. Anywho, now the Zohar says that the Ishen, the beautiful B'nai Elam, were not guilty, but mixed themselves with mortal men because they were sent on earth to do so. Elsewhere, the same volume shows these B'Elam belonging to the 10th subdivision of the thrones. But see also the first volume in the Zohar. It also explains that the Ishen, men spirits, very spiritual, I don't know how to pronounce the end of that, spiritual, through their science, which are not small men, but men smaller in sense of inferiority than men, both show themselves under the form that the Ishem had then, gaseous and ethereal. The chief is Aziel. But Aziel, whom the church dogma will associate with Satan, is nothing of that kind. Azael is a mystery, as explained elsewhere, and it is so expressed in the Maimonides. In more Neochim, there is an impenetrable mystery in the narrative concerning Aziel. And so there is, as Lanchi, a librarian in the Vatican, and one who ought to know, says, we have quoted him before that the venerable divine name has become, through the pen of Bible scholars, a devil, a wilderness, a mountain, and a he-goat. Therefore, it seems foolish to derive the name of Spencer does from Ajal, separated, and El God, hence one separated from God, the devil. In the Zohar, Aziel is rather the sacrificial victim that the former adversary of Jehovah, as Spencer would have it. The amount of malicious fancy and fiction bestowed on that host by various fanatical writers is quite extraordinary. Aziel and his hosts are simply the Hebrew Prometheus and ought to be viewed from the same standpoint. The Zohar shows that Ishen chained on the mountain in the desert allegorically, thus simply alluding to those spirits as being chained to the earth during the cycles of incarnation. Aziel is one of the chiefs of the transgressing angels in Enoch, who, describing upon Ardis, the top of Mount Armon, bound themselves by swearing loyalty to each other. It is said that Aziel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, to fabricate mirrors, to make one see what is behind him. Amazarch, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, taught all the sorcerers and dividers of roots. Amers taught the solution of magic. Barkael, astrology. Akabel, the meaning of portents and signs. Tamiel, astronomy. And Azradel taught the motion of the moon. These seven were the first instructors of the fourth man. But why should allegory be always understood as meaning all that is dead letter expresses? It is symbolical representation of the great struggle between divine wisdom, nous, and its earthly reflection, push, however you pronounce that, or between spirit and soul in heaven and on earth. In heaven, because the divine monad had voluntarily exiled itself therefrom to descend from incarnating purposes to a lower plane and thus transform the animal of clay into a mortal god. For as Officius Levi tells us, the angels aspire to become men. For the perfect man, the man God, is above even angels on earth, because no sooner had spirit descended than it was strangled in the coils of matter. Strange to say, the occult teachings reverse the characters. It is the anthropomorphious archangel with the Christians and the man-like God with the Hindus, which represent matter in this case, and the dragon or serpent spirit. Occult symbolism furnishes the key to the mystery. Theological symbolics conceal it still more. For the former explains many a saying in the Bible and even in the New Testament, which have hitherto remained incomprehensible, while the latter, owing to its dogma of Satan and his rebellion, has belittled the character and nature of its would-be infinite, absolutely perfect God and created the greatest evil and curse on earth. Belief in a personal devil. This mystery is opened with the key to the metaphysical symbolism now restored, while that of theological interpretation shows the gods and the archangels standing as symbols for the dead letter or dogmatic religions and as arrayed against the pure truths of spirit, naked and unadorned with fancy. Many were the hints thrown out in the direction in Isis Unveiled, and still greater number of references to this mystery may be found scattered throughout these volumes. To make the point clear once and for all, that which the clergy of every dogmatic religion, preeminently the Christian, points out as Satan, the enemy of God, is in reality the highest divine spirit, occult wisdom on earth. In its naturally antagonistic character to every worldly evanescent illusion, dogmatic or ecclesiastical religions included. Thus, the Latin Church intolerant, bigoted, and cruel to all who do not choose to be its slaves. The Church, which calls itself the bride of Christ and the trustee at the same time of Peter, to whom the rebuke of the Master, "Get thee behind me, Satan," who justly addressed, and against the Protestant Church, which, while calling itself Christian, paradoxically replaces the new dispensation by the old laws of Moses, which Christ openly reputed. Both these churches are fighting against divine truth when reputing and slandering the dragon of esoteric because divine wisdom. Whenever Anathotite, yeah, that's not coming out. The Gnostic solar Agmendamon and Christos, or the Theosophical serpent of eternity. There's like words I cannot and I will not even embarrass myself on. Or even the serpent of Genesis, they are moved by the same spirit of dark fanaticism that moved the Pharisees to curse Jesus by saying to him, "Say we not well thou hast a devil?" Read the account about Indra, Vayu, in the Reg Veda, the occult volume par excellence of Arianism, and then compare it with the same in the Puranas, the exoteric version thereof, and the purposely garbled account of the true wisdom religion. In the Rig Veda, Indra is the highest and greatest of the gods, and his soma drinking is allegorical of his highly spiritual nature. In the Puranas, Indra, because of profligate and a regular drunkard on the soma juice, in the terrestrial way. He is the conqueror of all the enemies of the gods, and the Daitas Negas, the serpents, Asuras, all the serpent gods, and that word, the cosmic serpent. Indra is the Saint Michael of the Hindu pantheon, the chief of the militant host. Turning to the Bible, we find Satan, one of the sons of God, becoming an exoteric interpretation, the devil and the dragon in its infernal evil sense. But in the Kabbalah, Book of Numbers, Samuel, who is Satan, is shown to be identical with Saint Michael, the slayer of the dragon. How is this? For it is said that Tselem, the image, reflects alike Michael and Samuel, who are one. Both proceed, it is taught, from Ruach, spirit, Neshma, soul, and Nepesh, life. In the Chaldean Book of Numbers, Samuel is a concealed occult wisdom, and Michael the higher terrestrial wisdom, both emanating from the same source, but diverging after the issue from the mundane soul, which on earth in Mahat, intellectual understanding, or Manas, the seat of the intellect, they diverge because one Michael is influenced by Neshma, while the other Samael remains uninfluenced. This tenet was perverted by the dogmatic spirit of the church, which a loathing independent spirit, uninfluenced by the external, from hence by dogma, forthwith made of Samael Satan the most wise and spiritual spirit of all, the adversary of its anthropomorphic God and sensual physical man, that devil. I'm going to leave that here because next time we'll read the origin of the satanic myth. But there is something here I do want to put a little postulate and in a little theory out here because I believe in this. I know it for myself, but we're not, society's not there yet. Coffee first. God said, let there be. That means everything on this eternal plane is from one source. And then just like the sand timer, it all like spreads out and then it comes down. You're that grain of sand on the beach. You are that microscopic amoeba in the ocean. You're with it and affected and you're flowing. That's all of us. Evil, not evil. We came to experience good and evil. And within us, in this dualistic form, we have a shadow and we have a light side. We have a negative and positive pole. If you want to equate Satan, Lucifer, the devil to the shadow aspect, you could, and you could put Michael in the light, but they're one. It's just like the archangels that work through me, the only two that will give me their names is Hallel, Lucifer, and Gabriel. The other beings that channel through me and come through me, they don't give me names because they're vibration and frequency. And the only other ones I can give names to is my family, like my mom. But I don't channel the archangels on here because that's not the role that they chose to do with me. They're having experience through me, and that's fractal form. That's not their whole essence in having an experience through me. because there's millions of people out there that can channel these beings. Saint Germain, Archangel Michael, everybody can make a claim about that they get messages from them and personalized messages. That's a collective. Their soul is fragmented. We're all the same. We're all one. We're fragmented into different things and different personalities. And our soul is what is the seat of this body. And it has a good side and a bad side. And if we stop to look at the logic on that, but many people are not there yet because the program still runs so deep with so many people. You know, people like you're talking to demons, you're playing with demons. And you know what? Those are just tests to see if I'm initiated, if I'm ready to move on with my spiritual journey. It is stair stepping. We're all on different journeys and different stair steps to ascension. Guess what? Of course, there's negative entities all around me. I don't pay them mind. And if they're going to come and test me, it's just to prepare me for what's coming next. It's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to go, oh my gosh, what do you not do? Oh, did you fall out of your righteousness to do your spiritual protection? Did you pray today? What did you do? Just some things to keep in mind when, because everybody is still in that program and that narrative steered. Evil, 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 evil. But in the conception that there are people out there in the conspiracy land that they think they're awake and they know everything, but still play into this paradox. Well, if we're all one, that includes everything that you claim you hate. So why don't you just get along with it and love it as if we're all on the same team? Oh, but we can't. Separation. As soon as you separate yourself from source, God, the all that is, you're separating. And you're never going to come into that union that you need to come into. And you'll get there, but it's going to take you a longer road. I'm trying to take not a shortcut, but like the chariot. Let's go. Get me off this bitch. So that's just my 2 cents, guys. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within. Be the shoulder. Be the lighthouse. Sprinkle and seed your truths. Like that path forward. And I hope to see you all in the next one. I will be live tomorrow for Craft and Sip Live. And if all goes well on Wednesday, I think noon Eastern, 11 Central, I want to believe, I will be on with Turn the Page with Janine. We're going to probably try to do a spiritual hour. So thank you for everybody that watched today. That was like, I was on her show today. I just stopped in and she put the link out there and I'm like, I gotta grab my microphone. I'll be right up. And I went upstairs and yeah. So I was on Janine's show today. Go check it out on her channel, Turn the Page with Janine. She's on YouTube and Rumble. Don't forget. Tomorrow is Craft and Sip. I will put the time out. I'm being grabbed at every angle all of a sudden. I don't know. But I will be live. I have to find a project to do. So I hope you all have a blessed and beautiful night. And until the next one, bye for now.